Joining us now, Congressman, 3rd District, North Carolina, Coastal Carolina, Republican, Walter Jones, the Golden Arm. Congressman, great to have you, man.
John, I wish I could see your team play on Friday night, but I'll be home in North Carolina. But wish you the best of luck. And
well, thank you.
I know you being the coach, that's a tremendous advantage over the other team.
Well, we certainly work hard. Tonight, we're game film to break down, so we'll see how that goes. But if my kids could shoot like Walter Jones did back in the day, it would be a blowout. And I never get over when I went to Hargraves for a visit. I did my show there one day, and they said, let me come in the gym. Let me show you this picture. They got this picture there of Walter Jones in his uniform, and a little thing under it that says, the Golden Arm. And I'm like, I can't believe that. So they were telling me how fabulous you were back in the day. So there you go. There's your legacy at Hargrave Military Academy back in the day. Congressman, what do you think of this trade sanctions? The president saying 25% tariff on Chinese steel. Have a nice day. 10%, well, on all steel imported, 10% on aluminum. And now he's saying, well, maybe I'll carve out Canada and Mexico if I can get a better deal with NAFTA. What do you make of the whole thing, sir?
I'll use one word, confusing. It has really gotten the Congress, whether you be a free trader or not, in an uproar because we haven't seen anything, in writing. It's all in conversation, and it certainly has created a great deal of interest and concern. And I think you saw today where some of my colleagues sent a letter. Basically, what they want the president to do is to slow down, come out with your plan, Mr. President. Let us all take a look at it, and let us have a chance to evaluate what is being proposed and the pluses and the minuses. But, John, it's just another example of shooting from the hip, and that can create a lot of problems for not only our nation but for some of our allies. So I can't give you an answer till I see more definitive of what is being proposed.
You look at North Carolina, right? And your textile industry was devastated by not protecting the industry and letting foreign goods and services flow in unabated with no tariffs. The North Carolina textile industry got annihilated, right? I mean, it used to be big. Now it's a shell of its former self. You were the king of the furniture industry. You produced what? Right. Back in the day, North Carolina produced like 60% or something of the entire nation's furniture. You know, now that's down to 7 or 8% because we let China dump cheap wood, Canada subsidize wood, all that comes in. So all that devastated your furniture industry. So North Carolina, more than probably any other state in the country, except maybe some of the Rust Belt states with NAFTA, has gotten hammered by unfair trade practices from other countries. So historically, don't you see a need to do something?
John, again, we have big farms that produce hogs and turkeys that they export as well. This is a bigger issue now than I've ever seen because we cannot continue, in my opinion. Some of these industries that you mentioned will never come back no matter what you do. Mm-hmm. We have to make sure. That's what all I'm saying is. I'm not even saying my position on the issue. I just want to see something that I can analyze along with my staff and have experts, pro and con, to give me some information so I can decide what seems to be the right course or what's not the right course. That's all I'm saying. All this is being said, 25%, 10%, 25%. Well, it's all conversation. You don't have trade decisions made on conversation. Mm-hmm. You've got to have something documented, and we haven't seen it yet.
What you're saying is you're basically looking for legislation, but there's no legislation. The president, here's the irony of this, Congressman. So Republicans, not you, Republicans, leadership, I can't even say this, Congressman, with a straight face, and you know where I'm going with this, right? Not Walter Jones. You were part of the resistance, right? But your Republican leaders gave President Barack Obama fast-track authority on trade. So they gave him the power to make these trade deals because they were salivating to get the TPP passed, all right?
Right.
So they gave him that. So your leadership gave Obama the power to do trade. Now that Obama's not president and a Republican's president, Trump, now he's got the power that you guys gave, not you personally, your party gave Obama, and now the president says, well, I've got it. Thanks for giving it to Obama. Now it's mine, and I don't need legislation. I'm going to go with the power you gave me and just put the tariffs on, and that's it. So doesn't Republican leadership have themselves to blame for this?
Well, indirectly, yes. But the point, again, is you've got these Secretary of Commerce and all these different agents, heads, that are going to have to put something into writing to state the position of the president is when he issues the tariffs. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
It's not legislation. That's not. He's got the authority to do it, as you just stated. But it's a point of to me, in that this world we live in, I always want to know what is the pluses and the minuses of a decision, because once it's done, if it's going to create a trade war, then how do we come out ahead in that?
Right.
So that's all I'm saying, is that we have to have something to look at and actually hold, and so does the American people. Right. You know, and I know, because some of your listeners would be in favor of this. Some of your listeners would not be in favor of this.
Right.
We just got to see what is going to be proposed, in my opinion, in writing.
All right, that's fair, right? Let's put it out there and do the analysis. Okay, now let's get to gas taxes. Look, here's the good news about President Trump, right? There's never a dull moment.
You're right on that.
I mean, you never like go into the office and, okay, what are you going to do today, right? There's never a dull moment. And if you have anything planned, then he sends out a tweet and it changes everybody's day, like it does in the media. So yesterday, the president floated the idea of, well, maybe we should have a gas tax to pay for the infrastructure. Paul Ryan, I thought he was going to come unglued, said there'll be no gas tax. Now, let's talk about this. The president reportedly told some lawmakers last month that he was in favor of a 25% gas tax hike to help pay for the multi-billion-dollar plan to overhaul the nation's infrastructure. Well, the money's got to come from somewhere. He said, hey, gas tax is fair because if you use the roads and things of that nature, you should pay for it. They're crumbling. If you're in agreement that we need to do something to fix our infrastructure, where do you get the money?
Well, first, I would stop funding the war in Afghanistan. I would start there. I would look at other ways to reduce America's involvement around the world, and then take that money that we're not going to spend and see how much that will buy. Maybe it won't buy much at all. But all this stuff is just like adding to the debt and the deficit, add to the debt and the deficit. I mean, we are getting so far. They're predicting this year that we will borrow up to $1 trillion that we will add to the deficit. I mean, it's almost like it's Rome again, and everybody's just watching the lions eat the Christians, and the Roman leadership is up in the stands just drinking away and having a good time. I mean, when I look at what we're doing to the debt and deficit of this nation, I just say how much more before our grandchildren or your children, depending on their age, will have to pick up a burden that will make it so that they won't even want to go to work because they'll be working for 20 cents out of a dollar. It's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy.
Congressman, what is the debt now, approximately?
About 20. The debt's about $20.6 trillion.
And it's going to go up another $1 trillion, right?
Yep.
So would that be at the end of this fiscal year or 2000? Like, just give me the.
I would think that probably we'll be at 21 trillion at the rate we're growing the debt now. Probably by the late fall.
Okay, so we'll be at 21 trillion in, let's say, the end of October.
Could be. Yeah, could be.
2018, right? That's a pretty good estimate. So when I bring this up to certain people, they say to me, well, it's not really the amount of the debt. It's the percentage of the debt to gross domestic product that matters. This has been like Tim Kaine's argument, Mark Warner's, even some Republicans have said this. Like, it doesn't matter. The number, don't get caught up on 20 trillion, 21 trillion. It's really about the percentage of the debt to gross domestic product, GDP. If it's lower than X percent, it doesn't matter. But I don't get that argument. I mean, $21 trillion in debt is $21 trillion in debt, right? You're paying the interest on it. And if the interest rate went up to 6%, the company would have to default tomorrow and the country would go bankrupt in a day, right? If they have to pay 6 or 7% interest on this, it would eat up every dime we have.
Well, I got a very nice note from my McGinnis when I voted against the tax bill. And I probably ought to get Allison to email this to you. It's of course, their analysis, that's the Committee for a Balanced Federal Budget, and talking about how much this is going to, we're going to at some point be the same number of the GDP as the debt. And when that happens, I mean, the percentage is going to be devastating. And I just don't know. A lot of people, you're right, this is not a sexy issue. This is not. But at some point in time, when this country starts cutting veteran benefits, starts cutting Social Security benefits, those days are coming if we don't change the direction of this nation. Could come in my lifetime, but probably more in your lifetime. But when it happens, it's going to be devastating. That's where we will feel it. It's when we have programs that were guaranteed to people. When they start being cut, then we got the problem.
Well, $21 trillion debt by October of 2018 is a very daunting amount of money. And at some point, we've got to figure how we're going to get this down. I mean, you're not going to wipe it out in our lifetime, but you got to figure out how the trends going the other way, right? Because now we're adding, you say, another trillion in this fiscal. So at some point, you have to stop adding it, right? It just has to, even if it were to stay there, you could figure it out, but it keeps going up. That's the issue. Go ahead.
This was Washington Post headlines. The United States government is set to borrow nearly $1 trillion this year, an 84% jump from last year. 2 days ago in USA Today headlines, tax cuts, spending helps push national debt to historic high, new report says. That goes back to your point. At some time, I mean, I've said many times, if Obama was the president and Obama had pushed the same tax bill that Mr. Trump pushed, hardly no Republican would have voted for it. They would first said, well, how in the world can we have the tax cut that's going to add $1 to $2 trillion over 10 years to the deficit? And they wouldn't have voted for it. So I don't know. I get somewhat confused by the deficit hawks who are Republicans because it depends on the issue. So it's just the American people are not. It's just like Afghanistan. Half the people don't even know we're still there. Half the people only know about the debt or deficit and don't care about it. But at some point, they're going to feel it. And excuse me. And when they feel it, then they're going to get interest.
Well, I think you're right. And, the biggest fear that we have is that interest rates go up to the 5 or 6% level, and then the $21 trillion debt becomes financially unsustainable.
Right.
So this is a very slippery path. And, you have to go back. You have to say to yourself, well, when was the actual debt coming down? How was it wiped out? When were we actually getting a surplus and the debt was getting reduced? And you got to go all the way back to Bill Clinton, right? You got to go back to Clinton.
Absolutely right, Clinton. Republican House, Republican Senate, Clinton was president. Yep.
You got to go back to 98, 99, and then George W. Bush came in, and we launched wars and cut taxes and launched new entitlements, and the debt started to go up, and then Karl Rove did the drug entitlement, for seniors that nobody really asked for. He did that just so that he could win Florida in the upcoming 2004 election. And that's when this whole thing started. And then it's been embraced by everybody.
Yeah,
but everybody. You're right. It's everybody's embraced it like it's okay. And some of the arguments I heard back in the day are now different. And they get back to, well, as long as the economists in the Trump administration, when I brought this up, they would tell me, as long as the economy grows faster than the debt, and the debt percentage to GDP remains at whatever the percentage is, 3.5%, I don't remember. Whatever percent is, as long as it remains at this percentage, it's really not a problem. But then the issue becomes in, well, what if it doesn't grow and you can't grow out of it? Then you're in big trouble. So it's a real issue, but your two biggest issues, Congressman Jones, are the debt and why we're in Afghanistan and why we're in Syria, right? Your three biggest issues, and they're getting the least amount of national attention.
John, yesterday I had the Defense Intelligence Agency in a classified setting. We were sitting in a room with 5 presenters, and I asked my colleagues to join me, maybe 10. I was the only one there for 1 hour. I mean, from the standpoint of me having a chance to ask questions and listen and make statements, it was it was probably one of the best opportunities I've ever had because I had 5 presenters, experts, by myself. But I told some of my colleagues, I said, you need to hear what I heard, because can't say anything, but I'm just going to say it this way. Your frustration and my frustration, John, was verified very deeply, and I'll leave it at that.
So 10 of your colleagues had an opportunity to be part of this classified briefing on what is going on in Afghanistan and Syria by people that are part of the team that's executing the policy.
Right.
And you were the only person that bothered to show up.
Yep. And John, I'm going to ask the CIA for their version of the briefing on Afghanistan, and I'm going to write my 10 colleagues who I think the world of and say you missed a great opportunity when we had the Defense Intelligence Agency. Please come to the CIA briefing. I know they care, and most of them agree with you and I. We want to debate about Afghanistan, but I just don't know. The whole world up here, when we started this conversation, I used the word confusing. It's just chaos up here. You talk about it, you know it. I mean, your listeners know it too.
I will not argue with that. That is a true statement.
Did you get the Kennedy book I sent you?
Yes, I did. I just got it.
Okay.
I just got it. Thank you. I got it 2 days ago.
Well, we need to talk about that in a month or so because I'm about to finish my book, same book you got.
Let me read that, and we will definitely talk about that. Congressman Walter Jones, Republican, North Carolina, 3rd District, Coastal Carolina. Always good to have you, sir. Appreciate your candor and forthrightness on everything. And there's so many issues that you and I agree on, but we're lonely voices in America, Congressman.
Amen.
Lonely
well, listen,
voices.
Good luck to your team on Friday night.
Thank you.